Okay, this week's guest can do it all. She is an actress, a recording artist, songwriter, director, producer, and so much more. She's been nominated for awards such as a Tony Award, Drama Desk Award, and Outer Critics Award. You may know her as Elle Woods, Glinda, and many other iconic characters on both the stage and the screen, but today we get to learn about the woman behind them all. Everyone, welcome to Take a Bow, Laura Bell Bundy.
Hi,
Hi.
guys.
Oh my goodness. Hi, Laura. This is so exciting. I can't wait to talk to you about everything. Literally, your career is so cool. You've played literally some of the most iconic characters on Broadway, literally. Like
Oh,
it's
thank you.
yeah, it's amazing. So I'm very excited that you were able to come on here today. The way I usually like to start my episodes is asking people, how they got started in the industry and what inspired them to want to be a performer and tell stories.
I'm from Kentucky, and when you're from Kentucky, it's just sort of a rite of passage to do a pageant, especially if you were born in the 80s. And so when I was 5, I did a pageant and I won a new car. And then, because
At
giving
5?
a 5-year-old a
Oh my
car is
god.
just, the most rational next step.
Of
Um,
course.
but so I end up winning this thing. And then months
Oh
later,
my
my mom gets this call that the Phil Donahue show, which is this panel show that you're too young to
Yes.
understand. It's like it was like what Oprah did before she did her other talk show, before
Right.
she had her network and the whole thing. And Joe Rivers did one. It was just kind of a thing, right?
Oh,
People did their
okay.
panel shows, but Phil Donahue was like the one. And it was always serious things. So he was going to do a whole episode on children's pageants. And they offered this all expense paid trip to New York City. So my mom was like, oh my God, we got to go to New York. We got to get new clothes and
Oh my god.
Kmart. Um, and so we
That's
went to New
funny.
York. We stayed at the Sheraton Hotel on 7th Avenue. I went to Lindy's and had cheesecake. I did all the things. We go
Oh
on the Phil
yeah.
Donahue show. It's like a full expose of children's pageants. They invite a child psychologist there. The audience turns on all the parents and is like, I can't believe you're doing this to your daughter, blah, blah, blah. And
Oh
then
my god.
I end up actually grabbing Phil Donahue's mic and trying to defend myself
Oh my
at 5. I'm like, oh my God, you know what? I had some cojones as like a little kid. But so anyway, we left. My mom was like, I can't believe we came all the way out here.
Oh my
And so my mom was like, going to shine the turd, if you will. As my father says, we like to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken salad.
Oh yeah.
So
I love that.
my mom waltzes me over to Ford Modeling Agency. And at the time, Eileen Ford was really big. And she had seen this like 60-minute special on her and how she had made Christy Brinkley and Brooke Shields and all of these
Mm.
big 80s models. And so she waltzes me over there and she's like, I'm here to see the children's division.
Oh
And they
my
said,
god.
well, ma'am, do you have an appointment? And she's like, well, no, but this is Miss Pee Wee Hemisphere. And if you're going to meet her, you're going to need to meet her now because we're leaving tomorrow.
Oh my.
And they're like, okay. So the guy calls up. He's like, yeah, we have a crazy lady at the front desk.
Yeah.
And, yeah, the kid's cute. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So they let us up. They let us up
Wow.
and they signed me to a 5-year contract
Oh
on
my
the spot.
god.
And then my mom goes, well, we don't live here. We live in Kentucky. They're like,
Oh.
well, there's this thing called summer kids and you can come up just for the summer and you
Mm.
can, do modeling and stuff like that. So the idea was that I was going to be there in the summer and I was going to do modeling. So then we walk back to where we're staying near the Times Square area. And my mom
Mhm.
was like, well, hell, we'll go see a Broadway show. So she walks into the Palace Theater
Stop it.
and she says, oh, I need your best and cheapest ticket. So we got a box seat where
Yes.
I can still smell the metal bar that I was
Oh my
leaning against to try to see the show, which was Starlight Express.
yes.
And the funny thing is like literally 22 years later, almost exactly the same time of year, I starred in that same theater in Legally Blonde.
Yeah. That's
Isn't that
crazy.
crazy? So what happened is I began to come to New York in the summers as a summer kid and do the
Mhm.
modeling and all that. And my mom, because I loved seeing Starlight Express so much, and I was involved in my children's theater at home in Kentucky, and I was
Sure.
taking dance and all the things and doing dance competitions as you do.
Mhm.
Um, that when we came to New York, it was like, let me just put all of my training on super speed. So she would like go to Broadway Dance Center and harass
Oh, wow.
the teachers to teach me privates. She found out who was the singing coach for all the Cosettes and Les Mis, and then I had lessons with them, and I did audition for Les Mis about 3 times. And about after the second time I went, they basically is like, "Ma'am, you got to stop dressing your daughter like a drag queen. She's not up for Fontaine. She's
Oh,
up. She's not dressed like a prostitute. You've got to dress her like a child, like Cosette." So then I believe she put like eyeshadow on my face for my audition to make me look like I had dirt on my face. But anyway, needless to say, I never got Les Mis, but I continued to have this training in the summer, and eventually I got another agent to do like commercials and acting stuff because
mhm.
I had been doing this training in the summer, and I had some close, like I was very close to getting Will Rogers Follies, and I was really close to getting Tessie,
Yes.
and I was really close to all these things. And finally, when I was 9, I got Radio City Music Hall's Christmas Spectacular.
Yes.
And that was my first professional gig in New York. And I think, the
Incredible.
interesting thing, like you asked, like, what made you want to do this? And I think there's, as a person who starts as a child, they have to ask themselves at different points in their life, do I still want to do this? And if
Yep.
I do, why am I doing this? And the reasons change.
Mhm.
When you're younger, you're doing this because your parent is like, hey, do this.
Right.
And you do what your parents say. But I think, as I look back to the type of child I was,
Mm.
um, I was very precocious and I was a mimic. Like I would watch The Sound of Music and then I would literally sing the songs exactly like Julie Andrews.
Oh my god.
Watch Wizard of Oz and do every single character.
Absolutely.
I am a gay man trapped in the body of John Bonet.
Yes.
And so I had it in me. And I think my mom saw that even though she had her own stars and rights. I mean, she's literally like Dolly Parton meets Mama Rose. That's my mother.
Oh my
Like,
god.
give you like a mental image,
I can
okay?
kind of envision that. I love that. It makes sense.
And so she has like that fierceness of Mama Rose with like Southern charm and the big blonde hair and boobs. Um,
Oh my god.
so I think as I have gotten older and I've sort of reevaluated every step of the way, like, okay, now I'm a teenager, I'm going to go back to high school and I'm going to have a
Mm.
normal high school life in Kentucky. I'm going to run track. I'm going to play soccer. I'm going to
Yeah.
do the school play. I'm just going to try to be normal. Now that's a hard thing to do when, your first gay pride parade was at 10.
Right.
Okay. It's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to try to jam this sort of I don't know, what do you say?
It's just like completely different
Right.
cultures, just New York and Kentucky.
Exactly. To try to take this sort of open-minded young
Right.
child and put her back into a closed-minded Southern environment, which by the way, I didn't enjoy the closed-mindedness of it all, but I absolutely loved having the normalcy of high school, and that was so
Yeah.
important even to my acting career as things got along further because I realized, as an actor, if an actor only has experiences of being an actor in their life, they can't play all the characters. They have to
Right.
have normal life experiences. So I'm grateful for all of that. And then I think, I applied to go to college. I did not apply to go to school for acting.
Mhm.
I applied for sociology and psychology
Oh,
to go to
wow.
NYU, and then of course I
Okay.
dropped out because I ended up auditioning for a soap opera.
Oh my god.
So, um, yeah. So then I think there was
What a journey.
another choice happened, right? So here I
Yeah.
was at 18. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to school for something that isn't acting, and then I get this acting opportunity, and that's when I make this choice between school and my acting career. And then I
Sure.
kept doing it again. Like when I did Hairspray, I went to school during the day. So I was
Mm.
always like, is this still going to be is this what I'm going to be when I grow up? And I think that the answer is yes and no
Mm.
because I love nothing more than performing live on a stage. That's so fun to me. And there's like that's a spiritual experience.
Hmm.
And that's an addictive experience. I think most performers would agree. There's just nothing like it. And that's why you keep coming back, because you're this beautiful exchange of love from the audience.
For
And it's
sure.
this sort of cyclical thing. And by the end of it, everybody's high. And so you crave that, you crave that drug. And I realized that I needed that. And I needed to have a place of self-expression, and I needed to have a place where I play.
Yeah.
But I think the way that I play has evolved, and, we do plays because we play music because we want to play.
Hmm.
For me, I just realized I never really wanted to grow up. And, and, and so that's why I think my career has not just been acting. It's been like, oh, now I'm
Sure.
going to write music, or now I'm going to direct things. Let me see what else I can do inside of
Hmm.
this playful, artistic career.
Of course.
Um, because, a person gets bored. You want to try new things,
Exactly.
right?
That's so fascinating. That it's like, I mean, it's not like similar to mine, but it's like the thought process around it all of just like, you know, kind of figuring it all out as you go is just like, and then the industry pulling you back in and all of that. Like, so fascinating to hear. And it's, I feel like, I mean, I don't know, it's just a relatable story, I feel. So that's really cool that that's like how it all kind of really got started. Did you ever, like, out of curiosity, like, were you ever told in the industry, like, you can't have an accent? Like, did you ever have like a southern accent? Because I don't hear it right now.
Yeah, when I was little, I did. I had a Southern accent, and when we were told like it's not going to work. There's no way she's going to book a
Really?
commercial or get these parts with a
See, that
Southern
is
accent.
crazy.
But because I'm an auditory learner, and because I'm a mimic, I could
Mm,
mimic other
right.
accents. So it was easy for me to lose it,
Right.
honestly. And the singing training helped that. If you hear these videos of me at like 4 or 5, where I'm like, my name is
No way.
Marvell Bundy,
Oh my god.
um, so it's easy for me to slip back into Southern more than any other accent. Um,
Really?
that's the easy one. I play a lot of Southern characters. They're very like inside of me.
Sure.
Um, but then, I lived in New York from the time I was 9 to 14. So by the end of that, I started to have an accent like this.
Right.
And
It's
like
crazy.
wherever I go, I tend to like, I'm one of those people that like show up in like England and 5 days later be speaking with a British accent and not be able to stop.
Right. Oh
So
my
it,
god.
it fortunately it wasn't that hard
Okay.
to adjust, but
Yeah.
but I did have to make the adjustment. Yes.
That's fascinating because literally I was thinking like while you were doing like your mom and everything, I was like, she literally doesn't sound like she's from Kentucky. Like it just doesn't just sound that way. It's so cool. Anyways, we'll move on. That's fascinating. And your journey here and through the career is pretty phenomenal. Honestly, it's just a crazy experience with like, I don't know, just like doing it for since you were a little kid and then like having that opportunity to reflect on yourself and be like, okay, is this what I want to do? What was that like? Because was that kind of like your first decision of like whether or not I can decide what I want to do?
Yeah, I think well, again, I think every step of the way, and as I
Hmm.
grew up, and I could say to my mom like, I'm not really interested in doing that. I want to go to high school
Sure.
now. I want to take a break, and she kind of thought that was a good idea too, and wanted normalcy for me. To put things in perspective, when I did Ruthless 10 and
Hmm.
11, Britney Spears was my understudy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then after her, Natalie Portman. Now these are two people
Oh
that
my
in
god.
during high school they were becoming superstars.
Sure.
So that there's great things about that, and there's really damaging things about that, as we can
Right.
now see. And
Mm.
so I think my mom had the wherewithal at that time to go, I think she needs to have a normal childhood. I think she needs to not make mistakes in public. I think we need to pull back a
Ah,
little and have family and focus on schoolwork and all of that. Because again, we didn't know, my mom and I didn't know that I would grow up to be an actress. I was just an
right.
actress now. And so, you know, having those 4 years of going to high school, and I was kind of like dip my toe. I would do a pilot here, or I would do an episode of this, or I would do a play or whatever. And
Of
I
course.
would pop out and do things like in the summer. But uh but then that decision to go to college in New York was an interesting one because I knew that is where I had been working as an actress, and I knew New York so well, and I had done a play right around the corner from NYU, and so there was like, it was almost like going to school at my second home.
Right.
And I had agents already, so they were like, "Oh, you're here, fantastic, you're back, so we'll send you out the summer before I started college." And then I
Right.
ended up getting this job, and I was
Oh my God.
excited about it, and I
Good,
wanted
yeah.
it. And I think to know that, like, okay, what do I feel inside of my body? My body is
Right.
telling me, and all my emotions are telling me, this is a hell yes. And I was, honestly, I was kind of burnt out from school a little bit.
Mm,
I think a lot of people are like, we start kids at 3 years old, and then we're like, hey, you got to be here for like 25 years.
right.
It was like, oh my God, I'm just tired of listening to people yell at me and tell me
No,
what I
literally.
need to know. Why don't I go out and experience and learn from
Right.
my experience? And then I really became a student, of
Mm,
life, and a student of acting. Um, and again, yeah, my educational process through about acting is very different than a lot of people's as well, because I didn't graduate school for I didn't graduate school for acting,
mhm.
even though I teach at colleges now.
Oh my God.
But it was more like learn by trial and error. Let's
Sure.
get on stage and see if this joke works tonight. Nope, didn't work tonight. Let's try it a different way tomorrow. Ah, now it works. Now I learned something. Let me store that in my brain. Now I know this type of delivery for this type of line and this kind of rhythm. This is what's going to work in the future.
Yep.
So that was how my process was. Or let me watch these other amazing actors that I have the privilege of working next to that are Tony nominated or Tony winners while I'm 12 years old. And let me just take every tool they have and put it in my own toolbox. So it
Right.
was a very different thing. But again, it was a decision, and it was a decision based on feeling.
Mhm.
And maybe in my mind, what was the smartest thing to do was, to go to school for psychology and pursue that. But
Yeah.
in my body, um, I was an idiot. And so I needed an outlet for that type of self-expression, and that was acting and
Sure.
music.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. And then soon after, I mean, you mentioned you were doing your Broadway debut, Hairspray, while you were doing school. So, what was that experience like? Did you go back to school? What
Yeah,
was all
so
of that?
I had begun developing Hairspray when I was 19. I did the very
Wow.
first reading of Hairspray when we only had one act. And we were in this like weird rehearsal studio on Second Avenue above a church.
Hmm.
And and I think there were like holes in the floorboards. It was crazy. But
What?
Harvey was there, Marissa was there, Dick Latessa was there, Jen Gambatese,
Oh.
Katie Leonard, James Carpinello was our link. I mean, and Linda Hart.
Oh.
So many of our original cast members were at that. Um, and so that, and I was doing the soap opera at the time, but just happened to have the week off to be able to do
Oh, wow.
the reading.
That's
And then I
crazy.
did two other readings. There were three. One I couldn't do because of my soap opera schedule.
Hmm.
And then I left the soap.
Casual.
And did the last reading of Hairspray,
Okay.
and then from there, it went. So I definitely I had done rehearsals. We had opened Hairspray. We had opened in the summer. So the second semester of that year, so after about 6 months after we were
Mm.
opened, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to school during the day. Because in my
Wow.
mind, I was just 21. So in my mind, my dad was still there, like, a woman needs an education, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
My father, had 3 daughters and raised them all like men.
Right.
And that we had to be, financially independent, and we had to be, thinking for ourselves, and we had to be educated, and we had, that was a thing.
Yeah. I get that Southern mentality.
Yes, I don't
Of
actually
like,
think that is a Southern mentality. Most
no?
people at that time, my mother was she's born in 54 and she graduated college in 72. And she had a
Okay.
younger brother. She was not encouraged to go to college, but her younger brother was. So,
Oh, right.
but for my father to be the type of father, and I was the youngest, to be like, but have you graduated college yet? That was what I believe that he really wanted, was for me to be educated and wise. And I
Interesting.
actually think he was going against the grain for a lot of men in the South.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's, I mean, I, I don't know. I guess hopefully times have changed because, like, I don't know. I
Yes,
guess I haven't
times
really.
have changed. Now more
Yeah,
women graduate college than men.
exactly.
Although now with things, with Roe v. Wade being overturned, I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
Mm,
But we have definitely evolved. There were times when women were not even allowed to go to certain universities.
right.
It was expected for women to take secretarial positions and do sort of associate training versus actually 4 years of college to become an expert at something.
Mm,
So you will see the numbers really going up from the time that women were able to take birth control, but that single women weren't able to take birth control legally until about 72 or 73. And that is also when Roe v. Wade was enacted. So that meant that women had control over how they could, um, plan their family or not have a kid or whatever. So that meant that
right.
more women were going to college and finishing college and entering the workforce in the 80s.
Right.
And there was if you look back at pop culture and the type of movies that were coming out in the 80s, a lot were women entering the workforce. You have 9 to 5.
Right.
You have the baby boomer.
Mm,
You have a Diane Keaton movie about working and having a kid, and all of that becoming this thing. And then we have normalized women in the workplace since.
yes.
Um, but that
Rightfully so.
anyway, that was like the big
Yes.
change, historically. And that's why this decision with Roe v. Wade is so much more impactful than you may realize. Because
Right.
as a result of us having sort of this bodily autonomy and freedom, that's
Hmm.
why women have been able to be valued for what they have to offer mentally
Right.
in our society.
Hmm.
Um, you know, what are the businesses that women have started since then? What are the doctors that have been educated since then that are women that are coming up with cures for cancer? You know,
Yeah.
when we look at women as just being incubators to have children versus valuing them for what else they can offer society, then we
Right.
actually lose as a society. So we have
Hmm.
a lot more at risk than people actually
Right.
realize as a
Yeah.
society. People so concerned about losing money, honey, you're going to lose money if you take women out of the workforce.
Uh oh. Uh oh. Preach. Oh my god. No, it's true, and I
Derail us a minute.
no, no. Let's talk about it because this is something I know that you're very passionate about because you started an album and a podcast surrounding it called Women of Tomorrow. So talk to me about Women of Tomorrow and kind of how this really all comes together and just like how you got so passionate about this to make this art from it.
I got to tell you, I think I just woke up one day and I hit my head on the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Um, I think that, also seeing the fact that, in the 2016 election, sort of seeing how Hillary Clinton was vilified, even though she was
Mm.
qualified, and how this person who wasn't qualified won. And, and you go like, and he also like talked about his sexual assaulting women and grabbing them by the hoo-ha.
Right.
Um, and so I was like, wait, my brain hurts. I can't figure out how this happened.
Right.
Wait, do we still live in a society that is so sexist? And have we
Mm.
elected someone who thinks that this type of sexual assault is commonplace? And this is very concerning. And so, as someone who is not a women's history historian, who
Right.
really like thought that we had equality, I was I it was like a record scratch in my life.
Mm.
And I decided, I was like a lot of women. I mean, this is when we had the largest women's march that we've had since the 70s, and women coming together shortly after we had the Me Too movement and Time's Up. That was the wave. That was the wave that women
Sure.
got on, was that election, to realize, oh, wow, these freedoms that we enjoy today, these were hard fought, these can be easily lost. We got to come together as sisters. We got to shine a light on this, because we thought it was over, but it isn't over. We actually still do not have that equality yet. And what equality we do have, we got to protect. So I was one of those women, nothing unusual. And I of course went to the Women's March, but then I thought, I want to do, we can march, but you ain't heard nothing till you hear us sing. We are going to literally raise our voices. So I did this concert called Double Standards, because the double standard is what was so glaring to me. And so Broadway stars came together to sing a duet on a jazz standard. I love puns.
Legend.
You can just call me Laura Bell Pundy. That is I love a pun.
Not you adding a pun to your name. Oh my God.
So we did the Double Standards concert at the town hall in the city. And we had like Sarah Bareilles and Rosie O'Donnell and Anna Gasteyer and Eden Espinosa and Lena Hall and all these Danae Benton, and it was and Ingrid Michaelson. It was this amazing, incredible group of women who came together to sing. And we raised over $100,000 for ACLU, Planned Parenthood, and National Breast Cancer Coalition. Wow. But the whole point was we can march, but we're singing, and we're literally raising our voices. And in that moment, I produced and directed this show. Not actually something I had done before, I'll be honest.
Oh, wow.
At that time.
And
then so I was writing with Kate Weatherhead. I don't know if do you know Kate Weatherhead?
I don't.
She's an actress. She was in Legally Blonde with me, and now she's writing the book for Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, very cool.
But she was and she writes the show. Oh hell, what's it called? It was on Broadway World. The people are auditioning. Submissions Only.
Submissions. Yeah. Oh my God. I love that show. That's hilarious.
Sounds like.
Yes.
One syllable. No. Okay. So yeah, Submissions Only. So she wrote that. So we were buddies, and I knew we both kind of cared about, female equality. So she wrote the intros with me, and we were starting to insert facts about women. And one of the facts was women were not able to open a credit card or take out a bank loan without the permission of their husband or father until 1972.
Oh, wow.
Was it 73? One of them, right. So I was like, what? That's not that far off.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, what? Birth control in any form wasn't legal until the 70s for single women? What? So then I started realizing how much I didn't know about my own history as a woman. Sure. And I started realizing how every little freedom that I'm enjoying was like fought for hard by women who kind of lost it all to make those freedoms happen for me. And I was taking them for granted. Sure. And I thought, well, I'm a pretty educated person. I'm pretty well read and thoughtful. How is it that I don't know these things, or I'm not taught these things? Well, first of all, we don't teach women's history like it needs to be taught in schools. Right. We teach everybody about Cleopatra, and we sexualize her, and we talk about, suffragist movement, but we don't actually really teach it how it properly was, that it came on the heels of the abolitionist movement, with Black women really leading the charge because they had been advocating for their own rights, and then they didn't end up getting the vote.
Right.
It took another 45 years. So these are the things that we sort of have brushed under the rug. And if you look at the totality of women's existence in our country, not in the world, because we've, existence has been billions of years, but
you're right.
But in the last couple of thousand years, women were essentially indentured servants, providing services to humanity, and their bodies were their currency. And so we have to kind of never forget that.
Right.
And so I just thought, wow, people don't know a lot. So I
feel like I'm getting a whole history lesson right now.
So but again, I'm not a historian. I just started
Right.
doing the work and I started doing the research and I decided, let me see if there's any women's history documentaries. I couldn't find
Yeah.
anything.
Wow.
And like you go to the History Channel and it's all like ancient aliens. Okay, you're
Who
not
cares?
covering women, but you're covering something that may not actually exist.
Right.
Aliens, and that is your priority. Like, what? And
Yeah.
when you talk about Cleopatra, which by the way is the one that they always talk about it, you sexualize her in a way that makes her salacious and interesting to watch.
Right.
And the truth is she was kind of homely, but of course they leave that out. So I decided I was going to create a women's history show. And how do I create a women's history show? Well, it's a musical. It's a sketch comedy variety show.
Yes, it has to be.
And so I sold this show to Freeform Network. And then, and of course, we wrote it and the whole thing and didn't end up going. But that was the beginning of it. And then I ended up doing the album Women of Tomorrow, where every song addresses a different issue women are facing today. But it is done like an MGM movie musical. So it seems like fun and exciting and beautiful and like, singing in the rain. But we're putting in these subversive and modern messages about women. And so that's the album Women of Tomorrow. And from there, I do the podcast on Broadway Podcast Network, Women of Tomorrow, where we delve deeper into those issues that are on the songs and we invite a guest in to, speak to how we can move forward. And we delve into the history of all of the issues. And then I started a foundation called Women of Tomorrow.
Wow.
And so we're dedicated to changing the social consciousness around women's worth through art, education, and community. And we help women activate their activism. And we're working on starting a community where we help women not only do that, but activate what is called innervism, which is the mind, body, and spirit of activism. So believing that you are worthy of the equality that you're seeking. And how do you do this? Well, you strengthen weak areas in your life.
Right.
Because those will add to the worthiness, strengthening weak areas like your outlook. And we have with women, we have sort of an overall, we struggle with an inferiority complex because society is constantly throwing that in our face, that we're inferior to men. And so we struggle with that in regards to our own worthiness and our own value. And when women believe that, or they stop believing that that is real and that exists, then that internal work helps the external world work. It's like healing yourself before you heal the world kind of idea. So that's what we're working towards. So if anybody wants to know anything about women's history or about the issues that women are facing today, or is interested in getting involved with Women of Tomorrow, we obviously have our podcast, but we're on Instagram and we're on TikTok. And I'm kind of an insane person on TikTok with the history videos. Okay.
Oh my God. It's so good.
Some have accents. And we just started it a few weeks ago, the TikTok.
Tell them the username.
Yeah, it's at Women of Tomorrow, but we spell it with an X. So it's WOMXN of Tomorrow, because it's anybody who identifies as a woman.
Right.
Because we inclusive when it comes to female equality.
Period.
And I also believe in general, when we talk about gender roles, as a society, we can become trapped by the gender roles, like this idea that a man must be a certain way and, must be a provider and must be strong and cannot cry and must not express emotionally and all these different things. And a woman must be demure and quiet and sweet and take a subservient role, must do the housework. And all of these sort of ideas imprison us. And they actually keep us from being who we are authentically are and who we are meant to be. So when we empower women to be all they can be, we actually end up empowering men to do the same. And then we end up being a more free society who can communicate with each other properly. I mean, I just witnessed like problems in people's relationships because of the masculine feminine sort of struggle that's going on, and men's inability to speak vulnerably. that's going to show some sort of weakness. And when we can kind of like alleviate those ideas, we're going to have much stronger relationships, much more
Right.
alive experiences in life. We're going to be able to live,
Right.
instead of just walking into essentially a scripted role.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. This conversation, literally, you're an inspiration, truly. Like I feel like I listen to your podcasts all the time, and like I love them. And then I love of course I've listened to the album too. So like literally I feel like not only will you be entertained, but at the same time you'll be learning and you'll be educating yourself. Like you'll be doing something good for yourself and society through you. And like the fact that you've given society that like is so it's so like well appreciative, and like I wish that like I had the words to describe it. Just what you're doing is just so good, and I thank you on behalf of like everyone who listens to it and appreciates it. Like thank you for giving us that space, to really learn. And because you said we're not gonna progress if we don't educate ourselves, like it just repeats, history repeats
Repeats
itself.
itself, right?
And so like without things like this and outlets and platforms like this, like you are giving us that space to learn, and you're not doing it through like an old white man history teacher, which is so lovely. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we have absolutely, and when I think about history books and stuff I read, they
right.
were all whitewashed and they were like man
Yeah.
washed, and like,
Oh my
the,
god.
what
So
I have
bad.
learned through this research is history is written by those who won history.
Right.
Right? So
Yeah, not much
there's
more than
so much more because not many people want it. I
right.
mean, let's actually talk about that whole side of it that's missing. Um,
Mhm.
and let's also talk about why we're here in the first place. Are we really here to
Right.
dominate and conquer and be powerful? Or are we
Yes.
here to evolve
Right.
and live?
So yeah, can't agree with you more here. And you said that you have the foundation and everything. Like, why don't you just drop everything? Like, tell me how you can find everything, because people are gonna want to follow up on this and just follow the journey of Women of Tomorrow.
So, Women of
Mhm.
Tomorrow, .org, same way we spell it, WOMXN of tomorrow.org is our website.
Mhm.
It's the same on Instagram, the same on TikTok. But if you follow me at Laura Bell Bundy, I have
Yes,
links
in the
to all of
bio.
it in
Yep.
my bio on Instagram, or whatever. And I'm reposting things all the time. We use our
Yes.
Instagram to educate, to give
Mhm.
information about issues, about how you can take action, or just general education things about women's issues and women's history. We use the TikTok as sort of what I call infotainment,
Mhm.
or hysterical history. We try to make light and have fun,
Right.
with women's history, giving you the facts in an entertaining way.
Oh.
And that's what I really think, and really the true initiation of Women of Tomorrow, besides me just sort of, I honestly think I literally woke up and one day and was like, this is all I care about and this is my mission. And
Oh.
so, but what I've realized is that the first half of my life was dedicated to learning how to entertain,
Mm.
and was dedicated to learning how to make people laugh and
Right.
how to make them listen. And
Right.
then, you know what the wrong way to make people listen is? To yell at them and shame them.
Facts. Oh
That
my
is the
god.
wrong way. The right way is through empathy. And how do we do
Mhm.
that as artists? We use music and we use humor and we use
Right.
comedy. And so through our music, and while some of it might be a little preachy, I gotta say, um, through our music, through comedy sketches, through this kind of thing, by creating this entertainment that you're also still learning, that's what though art is a heart opener.
Right.
And until you open the heart, you cannot change the mind.
Oh.
And so that's what I would say to anybody out there who is trying to accomplish change, is that you have to figure out the way that you can be listened to. you know, and that is through opening the heart, through empathy and through understanding and through music and through comedy and this universal language that we all speak. So that's sort of really where Women of Tomorrow lies, is in the root of
Sure.
the message, but also getting to the message in an artistic way. And you know, if you look at all art, right? If you look at Broadway overall,
Right.
when you go, there are messages in there for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the author's version of activism. Oh my gosh, let's talk about Hairspray. Hairspray
Right.
was activism on stage. You walked away and you're singing You Can't Stop the Beat, but really
Right.
that's telling you you will not be able to stop progress, period. Don't even try.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
You know, it's uniting us no matter what color we are, no matter the shape of our bodies.
Mm.
But that 6-year-old didn't know that. They were just
Right.
singing and dancing, and those kids from North Carolina and that family who came to see that show, who grew up with all around systemic racism that they did not realize, goes and sees this show. It's their favorite
Right.
show of all time. It is going to sink in over time. But you look at all of these shows that we have and plays that we have, and Broadway is, you know, at the edge and the foot pushing progress forward. Yep. Because artists are connected to storytelling, and storytelling involves understanding all perspectives and having an actor's job is to be empathetic. That's their whole job.
Yep.
Is to internalize the feelings of another. And so I think as artists, we do have a gift, but we also have a responsibility to make progress, you know? So, right. You know, Nina Simone said an artist's duty is to reflect the times. I'm basically saying the same.
Yeah. No, for sure. You're 100% right. Truly. Well, for time's sake, I need to talk to you about Legally Blonde.
Okay.
Before I let you go. This show, your performance in this show was just absolutely incredible. Seriously. And I never got to see it live, but I'm so glad that you guys like filmed a movie and like a pro shot of it. What was that like, filming a pro shot of like a musical? Did you have to like change anything for the cameras so that like you could kind of like fit it in, I guess? Like, what was just the whole journey of Legally Blonde? Talk to me about it.
Well, it's interesting, you know, we had obviously been doing the show for, you know, a couple of months before this opportunity to film it for MTV happened. And it was how are we going to do this? So they brought in a director who is an expert at sort of like live shows, like, you know, awards shows and things like that. So the same way like the Tonys get shot, and, you know, when the Tonys especially were at the Beacon Theater and a little bit smaller. Mm-hmm. So you basically have the cameras in a multi-camera situation going on out in the audience. But we did an additional show with no audience there before the show got there, like the day before or the day of the pro shot. I don't remember which, but nobody was there. And the cameras were on stage.
Wow.
So we kind of had to be aware of the fact we kind of had to scrunch, you know, those people that were on like 12 had to go to 10, you know, we had to kind of scrunch in. And then they had like, we stopped at one moment, and I remember the camera coming towards me during positive, following me. So they got all these cool additional angles during that time with no audience. And then they also had audio as well. Because now here's the thing, when they did that pro shot, first of all, everybody that came to that was in the audience for free.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So MTV had said, hey, come get free tickets of the pro shot. These people were crazy. They were all in pink and screaming like this was the Beatles or something.
Oh my God. It was
none of us, we couldn't hear the orchestra. They were so loud. The end of So Much Better. Somebody actually posted this. I went totally flat on the live because I could not hear
Oh.
myself or the orchestra. It was what? So the other good thing about shooting it during the day is that you had all that audio
Hmm.
without any laughter or clapping or screaming or whatever.
Right.
And you could actually mix and balance, because if we had just shot it and aired it, you want to be able to hear us. The people were insane. It was a crazy,
Wow.
it was one of the craziest shows we ever did. People were crazy.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens is when actors are experiencing an audience that is going that nuts for them, they
Mhm.
start pulling
Oh yeah.
tricks out and milking the cow, if you know what I mean, for the
Oh
jokes.
yeah.
And they become aware of themselves. And so there was a lot of that crazy choices going on too. And so I think because we had filmed it without an audience there, we could have kind of both takes of like the crazy, insane performance where the audience is like literally putting us on lithium,
Oh
and
my god.
the one that is a little bit more grounded. And we can kind of see
Brilliant.
what happens there. There's like a little I did have I had two of my best friends out in the audience, and one,
No way.
there's an inside joke, and
Oh.
I'm not going to tell you what it is because
Okay.
it's
What's
kind of dirty.
inside?
But
Oh, okay.
but it made the recording. I did something.
No way.
I made like a noise, and I did something for my friend in the audience, and you just hear him in the silence go. You know?
Oh my god,
So
that's so
that has
good.
been immortalized forever.
Everyone has to go back now and watch it and look for that part now.
Anyway, inside joke. But yeah, so it was fun, and it's a crazy thing. And it was actually, besides, I don't know if you ever saw like the PBS version of Peter Pan with Sandy Duncan. I always
Of course.
watched, or Pinocchio,
Yeah.
or any of these things, Into the Woods on
Hmm.
PBS. I always watched these growing up. But the first modern day version of that was Legally Blonde. This modern day
Mhm.
version of like a live taping of a musical was
Right.
our show way before its time.
Mhm.
And I have to say, most actors of Broadway shows are not, they don't go on to be recognized forever for their work,
Mm.
because it's actually not taped and immortalized forever.
Right.
But I have 8-year-olds that come up to me and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm obsessed with you," and I'm like, "You were not alive when I
Right.
did the show."
Right.
In fact,
Oh
I'm
my
not sure your
god.
parents were. No, but so
No, it was not that long ago.
it's a crazy, crazy thing. By the way, I'm not that old. I'm making a joke.
You're
Um,
you're 20. You're 26.
yeah, I'm 27 forever.
Yes. Oh my god. That's so good. But no, seriously, I wish more shows did that, because like if I would have never gotten the chance to see Legally Blonde, like if it wasn't for that MTV like taping of it. I wish that there's so much Broadway history that I wish I was able to experience that I never was able to, because I wasn't around or wasn't in New York at the time. Like, it's crazy. But one more question, like the show was just a massive hit, and your performance in the show was ridiculous, and it earned you all of these nominations for like awards, and you were doing all kind of press, and you like life was crazy. I can't imagine what life was like for you during that run. Like, how were you able to just like stay like fresh enough to do the show 8 times a week and be able to balance your regular life, and then like just doing all of the award shows and all the things? Like, how did you balance it?
It's interesting. As actors, we don't work a 9 to 5,
Yeah.
right? Our balance is different than the average person's balance.
Mm.
And what I've noticed for me is that there are times of intensity and there's times of rest.
Mm.
And in the years I developed Legally Blonde, I would have a really intense week or couple of weeks developing the show, and then I'd have rest. And then, and in doing the show, trying to get to balance was never a goal.
Oh.
Trying to get to perfection was. And if you want perfection in life, you got to work your effing ass off for it.
Yeah.
And you got to expect that the rest is not going to be a part of the equation. So I just gave up balance Yeah, my
Wow.
relationships went to shit. And
Oh.
but I did this show every day, and
Mhm.
I worked my butt off. What I look back and realize is I could have taken rest more inside of those days. I could have said no a little bit more, but I was young and had a lot of pressure on me, and I didn't know what was
Right.
going to burn me out. I'm a type of performer too that goes really hard. Like I'll give like 150% and go through the wall and then look back and realize I got bloody, and I didn't know that while I was going through the wall. And
Mhm.
and so I definitely have learned a lot in retrospect from that experience. What I had to do was, in the beginning, it was easy because you're fresh, right? You're fresh off rest, right? So
Yes.
but when your body is doing these same things over and over again, and your voice is hitting these notes in the same way every night, it's essentially like overworking a muscle, right?
Mm.
You have to give it rest. And so I realized, oh, okay, yeah, now I can't go out with my friends after the show, and I can't go to dinner before the show, and I'm going to have to be completely quiet during a 5 show weekend,
Right.
and I'm only going to be able to. So you really start to address the way. So for me, I was I felt like my job, my responsibility was to show up to do this show to the best of my ability every night. And everything else suffered as a result.
Mm.
My social life, my
Sure.
relationships, the other parts of my career, my music or whatever, to because to do that show every night. So that meant, I had to have a lot of things, maintenance that I was doing every day, a couple of acupuncture appointments a week, massage, vocal lessons, not speaking until 5 p.m.
Literally.
On certain days, and that was my focus. But I never didn't love doing the show. I loved it. And I
Oh.
loved the character, and I loved my cast. And we had
Yes.
so much fun together. And to be able to play such a character who goes on such an emotional roller coaster is so juicy. You can do it for a long time. And I'm not the type of actor who, what you see on opening night is what you see on closing night.
Right.
I will try new line readings every night. I
Yeah.
will try to find new jokes. And the whole idea is, how can I be the most connected to this character? How can I live as this character and feel connected to this character for the entire show? And how can I hit every note perfectly? And how can I hit every dance move perfectly? And how can I get a laugh on all of these jokes? Like
Mhm.
that challenge of the perfect show kind of brought me there every day, that
Sure.
challenge, and also having this cast that I love, and we were having so much fun together that I didn't want to miss that.
Right.
I mean, oh my God, we were crazy. But
Oh my god. I
we,
loved your guys' TikTok you made at the reunion.
that is
It's so
us.
cute.
And that
Yes.
Natalie Joy Johnson jumping into that water, and literally
Yes.
I peed a little. I'm not joking to you.
Oh
And
my god.
that's easy to do after you had a kid too. Like you
Right.
laugh and pee. But so
I,
that has been her from the beginning. And that is all, and Paul Kanan, who wasn't doing the craziness, he was kind of, that's him too. We had a lot of like spazzes in the
oh.
show doing crazy things. So when I say like I wasn't delivering lines the same way every night, neither were these guys. So,
Right.
and when that happens, it makes you listen on stage. It
Yes.
makes you awake. The show is alive. The audience is listening too. And oh my God. And Andy Carl is an idiot. I mean, we're all such idiots. And we got to be idiots together on stage. And this was the one thing I will say about the actors of Legally Blonde. They're character actors, okay?
Mhm.
And character actors are always looking for the joke,
Oh yeah.
and that means they're fearless. And then the element of surprise was always there. Like, oh my God.
So good.
And
You
Hairspray
guys.
too. Hairspray
Yes.
energy. We just had our reunion too, and I honestly felt like I had to come down from it. I was so high because I just love these people and the experience and their wackiness and people. I love show people.
I know.
There's no
It's so
people
good.
like show people, like no people I know.
Exactly. Like they become your friends and family, truly. Like it's like no one else exists except like the people that you're working on a show with,
I'll
you
tell you,
know?
everyone else is boring. after you've been
Yes.
around show people.
It's so true. I know, it's so funny because literally you put like this is why like I wanted to like do like a podcast or something because like the conversations that are had between show people are literally second to none. Like they are some of the best conversations ever. They are some of the funniest conversations you'll ever hear in your life. So I was like, this needs to happen, and it's so good. And I saw like because I was in Neverland with Matthew, and so that's where I was like, oh my god, the whole Hairspray reunion. It was so like it looked so fun, and I love that you've just been having all kinds of reunions because it's so true. The community is just so special and so tight,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's I love the people in this industry. Some of them, the performers in the industry are great. Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go because this we've gone on long enough. But this has been such a treat. Your story is so fascinating, and I loved hearing everything about your journey through the industry. And Women of Tomorrow is so cool. So everyone, go check that out. And yeah, I just can't thank you enough for giving me your time and willingness to chat with me.
Well, thank you, Eli. Thanks for having me on here. You know, I'm a performer. I really love to talk about myself. So,
Yes. I, I mean, who doesn't, right? It's as you should. You have so much to talk about, and so many people want to hear from you. So, thank you for giving me your platform for like an hour.
yeah, now I'm going to go
Yes.
back to, my dog vomited on the kitchen floor right before this.
Oh
I
no.
think my husband picked it up, but
You think?
we are living in the land of like, mommy, I have to poop and
Oh
dogs vomiting
yes.
on it. So I'm going to go back to that real life, but thank you for allowing me the escape for the moment.
Oh my
And,
God. I'm
and
honored.
it's been fun.
Thank you so much.